Hello, everyone, and perfect timing, Mr. Isvan, to the stage, please. Really? Yeah, directly. It's okay. I'd like to thank IDE first and foremost for this opportunity. Well, the other panelists, please come onto the stage as well, Mr. Sinan Kafadar and Mr. Levent. Well, thanks for the opportunity to address a select audience like yourselves. And also, a personal thank you to IDE from me, because I'm fortunate to be on stage with a very select set of speakers, speaking faculty, and it's going to make my life a lot easier than usual. So, let me join them. So, while they're preparing our panelists, I can give you the scope of our session today. Well, we all know that Azerbaijan and Turkey, it goes without saying, are historically connected. And there's a related bond of commercial activity that's growing as we speak over here. So we are going to tackle this multifaceted issue from different perspectives, from consultancy, from project management, from design, and from brand perspectives. And our objective is going to be to assess how a harmonized act can be structured. This harmonized act is not only meant for working in a healthy fashion, but also providing results. And speaking of results, I'm not speaking about average results, because both of these markets are very competitive. Therefore, our results are meant to be not optimized results, but as good as it can be, best results. So, can you? Okay, it can stay there. Okay, I'm going to be arranging this session in 3 phases. The first phase is going to be about the similarities and differences in these two markets that are working together. And my first question is going to go to dear Omer Isvan. Omer, you have a broad experience in both markets, as we all know, especially the upper and upper upscale segment. So how would you like to identify these differences and similarities in the building up a structure of investment?
Can you hear me? Yeah. First of all, I think the methodology, the process of development isn't super different in many ways. It is where it starts. That is quite different. In comparison, Azerbaijan is a newer market in terms of development, newer market in terms of real estate investment, and therefore. It is a process to assess what the needs are in the market, and demand and supply analysis and demand and supply balancing type of thinking has unfortunately been so far to do with guesswork. This is a developing country, and there is a lot of money behind that development, and anything goes. And I'm sure we're going to need hotels. I'm sure we're going to need a lot of hotels, was the thinking, rather than it was a prognosis. And that prognosis was not necessarily very accurately done. So therefore, the decision process on the investment is quite different between the two countries. In Azerbaijan, we see quite a lot of, let's build a 5-star hotel, period. There's no real analysis, there's no real feasibility behind it. And in fact, right now, we see a glut in the market right now for the short term on the upscale, and that's as a result of that lack of analysis and lack of waiting for a build-up of the country, the traffic, the business sense before you actually create the supply. And well, there's a hope that the supply will lead some demand, and that is somewhat happening, but there's a lot more the country has to do to actually attract people into the country, into the city, so that those hotels actually become feasible. Coming quickly to the methodology, well, Turkey is traditionally a construction country, and there's a huge amount of competence in terms of construction itself. whereas Azerbaijan did not. And therefore, it is by and large Turkish companies who are actually the constructors in Azerbaijan as well. So that is the actual construction, but of course our life and Sinan's life pretty much are to do with pre-construction, actually conceiving the project, creating the right product, designing the right product, engineering the right product before it's built. And there, I must say that Azerbaijan has gone one step ahead of Turkey in terms of utilizing the right sequence of advisory feasibility now. Yes, now though, I mean, not when this supply came to being, but now everybody realized that, oops, I think we need to be. Project management, which again in Turkey it still lacks. Our very able construction companies actually want to project manage their projects themselves, rather than bring in third-party project management companies in the professional sense that we know. In Azerbaijan, we're seeing now much, much more independent, professional, and qualified project management teams in place in larger projects, of course. So that is one difference. In Turkey, we still want to do it ourselves. In Azerbaijan, because there was not the inherent know-how anyway, they're bringing in that kind of soft elements of the process, more professional. Real architecture, designers, engineers, etc. Whereas in Turkey, there's still a tendency to go in-house a little bit too much. I can talk more, but let's, yeah.
Great point about project management, because I want to turn to Levent over there. Okay, historically, we know that all the major contractors and constructors in Azerbaijan are Turkish. When you look at it from the project management perspective, how do you compare the Turkish project management companies against their foreign counterparts in Azerbaijan?
I think you hear me, right? Okay. Actually, if we start with the development of real estate industry in the last 15 years, and we come to the project management issue from that point, we can say that we have good progress compared to last 15 years. But we do have a lot of problems that we have to overcome compared to the international project management companies and the Turkish ones. The very first one is the authority issue. There are many ongoing projects in Turkey, and the owners, the clients, just a few of them want to work with the project management companies, because probably we are all Turkish people are born contractors. But the thing is that, okay, some of them say that we can work with the project management companies. It's a good idea to work with them. But somehow they give all the responsibilities to those companies through contracts, but they don't give them the authority. And this causes a problem of managing the contractors and the subcontractors. So the drum is on the neck of the project management company, but the sticks are in the hands of the client. So this causes a big problem. When we compare it with the international ones, for example, the projects that we face, we completed in Middle East, they use FIDIC type of contracts, they use AIA contracts, and in those contracts, the authority is given completely to the project management company. The second problem that we face is standardization. In Turkey, the project management companies are trying to standardize their rules and regulations through, like UPYE, that the foundation that we established 4 or 5 years ago. But we still have progress to get ahead, and we need to get more standardized, and we need to get all the project management components to be put into the account when we manage the projects. The third one is the profitability. Unfortunately, the project management companies in Turkey, they are acting like, I'm sorry to say that, headhunting. So, I mean, the client says that, okay, please bring all those engineers and architects together to manage the project, and I put a cap, a very small margin on this, and then manage the project. It's not the way that we can manage the projects. So the profitability margins is really, really far behind the international ones. So that caused the sustainability problem. So if you don't get more and more money, and if you don't make enough money to work abroad, then you can't compete with those international ones. Of course, I mean, when you give some offers, you can be cheaper than the international ones, but that doesn't bring you the job, because the international client doesn't want to get a project management company which is cheaper. They just want to get more organized, more reputable, and more institutionalized. Those are the main problems that we face in Turkish construction industry in terms of project management. And whereas all the Turkish contractors are doing great jobs all around the world, unfortunately the project management companies, because of those issues that we face in Turkey, they don't have enough chance to compete with the international ones.
That's a chain reaction you just set out very, very keenly, actually, and I appreciate that. That's when I want to turn to Sinan here, because throughout the years, we've been working all over the place in different countries, and it's not only that all Turks are born as contractors and constructors, but also they are designers. You know that very well as I do. And in this environment, how do you see the factor of design as a term of leverage upon the profitability margin of a project?
Well, first of all, I will be talking with my Turkey experience, because my Azerbaijan experience is almost none. And in terms of profitability of the projects, especially for commercial projects like residences and apartment buildings and the offices and so on, the designer actually sets up all the principles. So I think selecting of the designer may open up this profitability margin, and if we can make a difference, then it actually directly appears on the profitability table. And once we are on board, we start to, in a way, educate our clients with our proposals how to increase this percentage. Good design brings a better money. That's all I can say. So investors should look at the long term. They shouldn't look just the comparison of the proposals coming to their objectives. Who can bring better experience? Who can bring more different options? I think that this is the way they should look at the selecting designer. That's my objectives.
Great. Well, okay. It applies for both parties anyway, not only for Turkey, but also Azerbaijan and elsewhere in the world. But these are the differences and similarities we're questioning. Now I want to step into the realm of habits. And I want to turn to Omer again. You've been on both sides, on tight investments, on credit, and ego investments. How do you see the public-private partnership at the moment? Where does it stand for you? And how do you see, are we finally going through a period of safe turnkey investments? Are we there yet?
Only in the mega scale, yes. On the mega scale, actually, we started more with the healthcare in Turkey, and it is only now, as it matures, we are going to see more into the mixed-use arena. But it was usually a single sector or a single asset class type of a focus in the creation of these PPPs. But right now, for example, we're involved with a couple of mega projects where, well, when you say PPP, we should also understand the dynamics of how it's structured. In energy sector, the PPP actually is that you build it, you produce it, I'll buy it. So it is basically a locked-in feasibility, so it's easier to finance. There's sort of a virtual sovereign guarantee behind it, virtual. And then you take something like the third airport in Istanbul. We're talking about a 10, 11 billion euro cost and a 22 billion euro rental. So all in all, about a 30 billion euro undertaking by the consortium, whereas of course there's guarantees by the government in terms of the passenger flow, in terms of the net income that can be injected into the airport. Now that is a PPP as well, although it may not be called that. Now that, for example, has a lot of non-airport components in it. It's a complete city. And there, I don't think the financier's view on that portion of the development is a PPP, nor is there a sovereign guarantee behind it. So, whereas in the airport section it is. In the healthcare also, we're looking at PPP projects where there's hotels, where there's some component of residential, some component of commercial within it, but the focus is onto the healthcare portions because that's how the PPP is actually structured. So I'm not quite sure we're going to see any real lifestyle real estate investments that are going to be a sovereign type of platform, really. But similarly in Azerbaijan. In Azerbaijan, there are quasi-governmental investments. They're kind of a gray area between private sector and government sector in a lot of the investments. And I think it'll continue to be quite gray there. The lines are not going to be very absolute between private sector and public sector there, but certainly very difficult to finance. It's a very high equity market, whereas Turkey, in comparison, is a more leveraged market, and definitely much more leveraged market. We work on credit here much more than in Azerbaijan. You can also look at it just by interest rates, and you will know that you're not financing anything with 20% rates and things like that. But coming back to the subject just before, what Sinan was saying, there's two interesting components in the selection of designer and any other components that are not brick or mortar. And that is probably one of the biggest challenges today in the real estate development, whether it be hotels, whether it be offices or whatever. Unfortunately, the Turkish investor, the Turkish developer, of course there are exceptions. We're now generalizing because we're in a panel. In character, look at their feasibility in a single page feasibility before we get involved with these very sophisticated feasibilities. The biggest disparity, one of the biggest disparities between what they do and what we do is the first bit in the feasibility. Design engineering, construction, design engineering, project management, consultancy, the various levels of expertise that need to come into play before you create the product. The amount that was allocated there versus the amount we would allocate there is probably in the multiples. We're not talking a percentage spread. They would say 1, we would say 7. This is where that kind of a difference. And that's very, very dangerous. Yes, you have to pay taxes, and that's unavoidable, and it's not a very pleasant thing to do, to pay taxes. Nobody likes it, nobody wants to. But you have to put it down. You have to pay your dues for your permits. Well, nobody can avoid it, nobody likes it, but you have to put it in the feasibility. Unfortunately, design, architecture, consulting, etc., is viewed in that category. That, oh shit, we have to have an architect now, and put number. And what? And on top of it, an interior designer. On top of an architect? Are you kidding me? And then somebody like us comes and says, you need a lighting designer? You say, you must be joking. I mean, that's now too much. And, yeah, exactly. So it is seen as almost like infrastructure investment, it's like sewage treatment plant investment and architects' fees. They're kind of, in the mindset, it is kind of similar. Today's Azerbaijan is different. The allocation of soft costs are much more realistic because they are not the able constructor who has, in his history, built 8 million square meters of this, that, and the other around the world, so he's so competent. So what, just a hotel? Of course, I can do it in half an hour type of an attitude, which eliminates all that soft thinking. But because they're not that competent there, they say, hey, I better get the best advice, the best designer, the best this, best that, what else do I need? You know, so there's that difference. But this is very, very, very important for the Turkish mindset to understand two components of an investment. A, the monetary and qualitative investment into design and engineering and consulting. And the second thing is the time investment that is required for those as well. Because again, I'm sure you're going to hear Sinan complain that typically the architects, designers are allocated the amount of time that actually is not sufficient to create a real proper product that the architect would like or the project actually deserves.
Then this is the right moment to turn to him, actually. I'm going to swap the order of questions because, well, we're all experiencing this. There are unprecedented revisions in all projects because there's an immature business plan. There are a lot of third-party influencers and lack of consultants, this and that. Sinan, where do you see a keen project, not management, not design management, but a true project management, let's say, consultancy? Where do you see the consultants entering and leaving? What is the best case scenario for you?
Well, I will split this two different sectors. One is hospitality, other one is residential. In hospitality projects, for us, it's very important to have the operator to be on board to begin with, because they have to write the brief, and we as a designer, we should reply with our design, with our deliverables. And versus in residential projects, if there is no consultant to give an advice to owner party, our job becomes a lot more difficult, because some of the projects, like we are working on right now, 3 different towers in Istanbul, and all designed by different foreign architects, and we're trying to fit a proper apartment flats into this, which will fit into Turkish lifestyle. Working with the foreign architects, it's okay for offices, it's okay for hotels, but where people are going to live, residences, villas, and housing, it's a completely different scenario. To working with the foreign architects needs a filtration, I guess. Like Servotel in some of the projects, when they are on board, once we have the architectural plan, then for sure it's filtered through their experience. And then we also want the sales department's inputs into these plans. For instance, an American architect can design it differently, 2-bedroom flat, and a Turkish architect can design completely differently because of our Turkish lifestyle. So it's a very difficult dilemma nowadays that we are facing throughout the world, because design became very international. And as we are doing a design in different countries, and many foreigners doing a design here, but for investor point of view, they might think that they paid such an amount, they hired the best architects, but the products may not fit into our standards. This is one term. And secondly, when you were asking when other consultants should get involved to the projects?
The ones that Omer is saying, has been mentioning, lighting designer,
Yeah.
what do you need them for? Audiovisual consultants, why? And we all know that they are there, they have to be there.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're going
definitely.
to be covering up for them.
Yeah, definitely. And we like as many as different consultants to be on board to give a, to make a better product. But sometimes it's very difficult to explain why we need that many people on board.
Well, speaking of this, in every project, these are the parameters that we have initially. But then these are kind of like on boards and on paper. When it becomes a reality, we also need a different set of consultants to make it as good as it looks on the paper. That I say, with the majority of the audience being suppliers here, procurement management. That's also pretty important for us. And I'd like to turn to Levent here. How do you see procurement management from a project management perspective?
Let me start with definition of procurement management. I mean, what it is not. It's not just buying and selling something. It's, yeah, it's just more comprehensive than this simple definition. Procurement management actually is the heart of project management because it is very interrelated to all the other disciplines of project management. How? I mean, we are all doing many projects and we need many materials to buy, and of course they have cost. So the cost of materials, the cost of the equipment, they are related to cost management issue. The conditions of payments, the cash flows, they are all related to financial management issues. On the other hand, we have the delivery conditions. Is that going to be CFI? Is it going to be FOB? We all need to know the delivery conditions and delivery durations. Plus, before the delivery, we need to know the production durations. So they are completely related to time management issues. So it cannot be detached from time management. It's just in the heart of the construction schedule. I mean, whenever you have a delay with the time, you have the delay with the delivery of the materials or some other equipment, you delay the project. On the other part, it is completely related to design management. I know that most of the procurement managers, they suffer from the design changes, unfortunately, but that's the reality that whenever there is a change in the design, the material conditions are going to change, the technical specs may change, even the project type may change, so it's going to suffer from those changes. Plus, it is very interrelated to quality management because we need to know all the technical specs and how the materials quality is going to be. So if you don't know the quality management issues, then something is going to be missing. So those are interrelated to each other. What else? I mean, procurement management is very related to contracts management because you have the unit price contracts, we have the lump sum contracts, we have the cost plus fee. Those are all components of contracts management, which is a sub-component of procurement management. And finally, we can say that all the procurement managers, all the suppliers and vendors, they have to communicate each other. So that is the part of the negotiation, and that's part of the communication management. So when we add all those one by one, then it's going to be the methodology of the PMI. I mean, the project management methodology of PMI is made of all those management issues. So what means that the procurement management is going to be the heart of the PMI methodology.
As I was going to turn to all of us in a way, because there's a prime consultancy over there, project management over there, design here, and if an investment is lucky, brand as well here. So Levent, how do you coordinate these four as a team? How do you see a healthy collaboration structure can be formed?
I mean, in terms of
achieving a successful result of any given investment, especially in the mixed use arena where all of us are involved in a way.
Well, the important issue that we need to get a well-structured partnerships. I mean, if you consider the partnerships of Azerbaijan and Turkish governments, I have some kind of suggestions that can, bring two countries and the companies operating in those countries. The model that former president of Venezuela he came up with an idea to sell, oil with a cheap price and to invite Turkey to make some mass housing projects. We can bring that kind of partnerships in between Turkey and Azerbaijani government. That's one issue that I can recommend. The other one is that we can, and this is going to be under the umbrella of the PPP. So both governments are going to have relations and contracts that will cover all those issues, plus the problems that face the Turkish contractors in Azerbaijan. What kind of problems we are talking about here? The custom duties, the visa problem. So we are two brother countries, but we still have to get visa, need to get a visa to go into the market, and it's just we need to renew it every 1 month, as far as I know. And there are some formalities, custom formalities, and some export problems for the companies are making some export to Azerbaijan. So we need to fix those problems under the umbrella of the agreements of those two countries.
Well, even if it's well structured, we all know that there's a tendency to realize investments ASAP in both countries. And this tendency has consequences, most of the time unlikely. The delivery deadlines are extended, patience is decreased, frictions increase. I want to turn to Sinan here because most of the time all these changes take their toll on us as designers very hardly. So how do you see a healthy structure from your standpoint?
Well, of course, approval process. Without missing any stage, if we go through the approval process, the life will be very easy for everyone. But there are changes on decisions, mostly created by the owners. And at that point, what you can do is very limited. And then there's a chain reaction. It's starting from architecture, interior, and throughout all the disciplines. So what I will recommend to our project managers, please don't start the other disciplines before the plans and elevations created by the architect or interior designer. Don't start the other engineers to work on it so deeply. Then after a few revisions, everyone becomes so fed up. At the office, that's again a revision. It's so demoralizing for everyone working on the revisions. Sometimes the project managers, they rush to start all the teams all together, but it's not like this. Actually, one phase starts and ends, then the other disciplines should start. That's how I see it.
So there must be a keen orchestration, all the disciplines.
And nowadays, in our world, we expect the project managers to be the orchestra chief conductor.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. So turning to Omer again, in the light of all these structures well set, perhaps this is going to be kind of like a crystal ball session for you, but I really would like to know how you see branding and, in case, white labeling in these two countries.
Starting from the structure of a project, we've worked now almost 30 years, 40 plus countries, so just multiply them with the number of projects. Of all those, which projects actually succeeded best in a general balance of time, cost, and ultimate product quality and profitability, etc. Without a failure, that has been the ones that the entire process was orchestrated by a professional project management team, where our client obviously is the investor. We advise the investor, but once the initial concept development, initial feasibilities are over, and we're now on the table to actually design and build, then onwards our client was the project manager. So the project manager, basically everybody in the sequence, whether it's a designer, interior designer, engineer, consultant of any ilk, all actually are orchestrated by the project management, who needs to then do some balancing act there. Imagine a mixed-use project that we're the advisor of the hospitality component, and there's somebody who's advising the marina component, and there's somebody who's advising on the retail component. And we all say the right things as far as our concerns, but then they clash within the project. So they're basically conflict resolution needed. So there needs to be an element that does conflict resolution and actually move it forward. Typically, clients who don't have a competent project manager cannot do that, do not do that. as simple as that. And then emotions get into place or inefficiencies get into place. So emotion needs to be somewhat removed when you're actually managing a complex project. Emotion typically is the one that singularly causes the cost overruns and the time overruns on those things. Anyway, that was just a little continuation on the structure. But in terms of sequencing, unlike what Sinan said in terms of the brief coming from an operator or a brand, we certainly don't believe that should be the case ever, unless the investor was the brand, which is very rare these days, owner-operator investments. If the investor and the owner is one and the operator is the other, operator is really a tool to actually manage the day-to-day of the hotel and to create a brand awareness and the marketing and all that kind of thing, and that could change along the way. It's a marriage, and as in any marriage that could end up in a divorce, it could end up with a lifetime happy marriage. So we're never building a hotel for a brand. Where we conceive a hotel from the perspective of what is the right property there, what should be the right segments to target, what should be the right price point to operate, what are the facility programs should be, and then only say, okay, since this is the right hotel for this particular location, who best can actually fulfill the management, marketing, branding requirements of this product. So if that is not independently created, instead it was created into a collaboration of a brand and an architect, you're almost insured to do the wrong thing. Because a brand is a brand. They're a single brand minded, and that's what their DNA is, that's what their brief is. And unfortunately, because of the size of brands and the way they operate these days, the amount of visionary intervention into each particular project is highly limited. Yeah. So it is very, very limited. So it is a cut and paste. A cut and paste means the wrong thing. Yeah. Cut and paste is like a roulette game, and only once out of 32, it's the right hole. Otherwise, it's a set of averages. You won't make a huge mistake in terms of, I'm sure you can get the food from the kitchen to the restaurant, but that's not what we're looking at. Right now, it's a very competitive world, so what we're creating is a combination of an operating success and also a value success. So, first of all, the operator is not aligned on the value element because they have no benefit from the hotel actually being valued at 100 million or 500 million. It's nothing to do with them. Operating-wise, yes, they're somewhat aligned, but as we all know, unfortunately, today the brands and operators are in the game of footprint increase rather than making an individual hotel a great success in the bigger scheme of things. So, therefore, the conceiving the product should be independently carried out with experts, and then the brand matched into it. That's the sequence, first of all. And therefore, we create actually the space programs and then the briefs and everything. And then, of course, with the collaboration of the brand, we would sort of make touches so that there's some two-brand so that it's not two-way out of the brand. That's all.
This also has some connotations with the core essence of this session. You're talking about being in the know of whatever brand is going to be expecting from any project. You incorporate everything.
Or at least a set of brands. We would never do a single brand-minded property. We would always say, as I said, this could be a divorce, so what am I going to do tomorrow? So it's got to have that element of flexibility. So we're talking about a set. So we're positioning it in a place where there's multiple of operators can fit in. One of them will have a green logo, the other one will have a red logo, the other one will have a little feature that has to make chocolate chip cookies in the lobby, the other one doesn't. Fine. Those can be tweaked along the way, but the actual nuts and bolts and the general skeleton and the general composition of the property, there's only one right, and that right is never, not never, but it's only very rarely is the 100% put together by the brand. So that's first of all, the sequence issue is there. Same with residential. If you're not a competent residential marketing and sales company who has a complete pulse of the market as to what the current requirements are in terms of the composition of what that unit that you're trying to sell, then there's no way an investor and an architect getting together is going to put together a residential product that I can sell at the best. Of course, it'll always sell somehow, somewhere, at some sort of a time scale, at some sort of a price point. But our game is to maximize all those. Minimize the time, maximize the price, maximize the profitability, and make the customers happy ultimately. And therefore, it's got to be a sales and marketing know-how that actually creates the brief, tells you what kind of a mix of units, what kind of a master bedroom we're talking about, what means a changing room, so that the architect can then create that to the best of their skill set, creativity, and their novelty values, etc. But the fundamentals need to be put together by a sales and marketing know-how.
That you are actually promoting white labeling to an extent.
This is not really white labeling. I mean, this is, even if we were not a white label management firm that we are, but our core business is in the development and totally impartial development expertise and advice first and foremost. The white label management comes way later than that. Now, once the right product is put on the table and all the parties are comfortable, architects are briefed, and the life is going on, then is our time to think, who's going to run the show? Who's going to manage this? Should it be branded? If so, should it be branded and managed by a white label? Or should it be a self-branding and a white label? So white label may or may not come in. And we would be very, again, impartial. Just because we're doing it, we wouldn't put that forward as a primary concern. In fact, since we launched that, I don't think we did even once yet propose it to a client yet, because such so happens that those products needed an international brand. So we thought that, no, this isn't white label. No, this is not white label, this is not. So once there is one, we will say, hey, by the way, you have an option. But otherwise, again, we have to divide the two, the development period and then the selection of the design, the marketing and, selection of the management and the branding. It's two separate things. So brand-led or architecture-led products are basically, some of them are super successful, but I unfortunately call that accidentally so. Because the financials, the economics, the marketing, the management elements, the local competition analysis, the prognosis of the market, where the market is going to go, what the world trends are, who's succeeding where, what profitability is happening in which hotel, where in the world. If somebody is not doing all that work in order to get your product right in the first place, then obviously you're playing for luck. And so I'm not saying that there's no room in the world for design-led products. Of course there is, but that's a niche. Now we're talking here more of a generalization actually in terms of what's what.
And I'm happy to hear from all of you guys that no matter what the investment structure is sized, we need to have upfront keen consultancy, project management, keen design, all harmonized, free of dogmatic bias and ego. So now I'd like to turn to the audience for a brief Q&A session. Actually, this is a great luck for all of you in the audience to have this set of professionals on the stage to ask questions. Any questions? Okay, there's one here.
My name is Levent Yürükoğlu. I am joining from Ersa Construction here. I see the panel discussion topic as Azerbaijan, and it's pity that you didn't invite anybody from Azerbaijan here who would be able to tell something about their own country. Mr. Levent has proposed something which has nothing to do with the Turkish-Azeri business opportunities, giving the Venezuela example, which has no meaning at all with reference to Turkish-Azeri business. They sell to us through the pipeline, they get their money, they are able to buy whatever services they want with their dollars in cash. So they don't need Venezuela experience to build mass housing there in Caracas, and we just get a cheap oil. It's not the case for Azerbaijan. The second issue is that when it comes to the visa matter, it's always heart-touching from the Turkish side that why brother is imposing visa on the other brother, while the Turks are not doing the same. Azeris are allowed to come here for 30 days without visa, which we actually apply to all the Turkish, let's say the Turkish republics in the Central Asia. Actually, when you go to Azerbaijan, practically you don't need visa. You just need $10 and 2 photographs. You just give it to the police there and they give it to you. So this is the case. The reason why they are not able to lift the visa to Turkish nationals is because of the Iran reason. Iran says that even if they do not officially declare this to the public, Iran says that in case that you are going to lift the visa for Turkish nationals, we will not be letting you to have a safe passage from Iran territory to the Nakhchivan, because it is already cut with the Armenian soil over there. So this is the only connection other than the Georgia that the Azeris are able to pass through to Nakhchivan. This is the reason why the Azeris are not, at least on paper, not being able to lift the visa related with the Turkish nationals. When it comes to design related with the Azerbaijan, forget about the Turkish companies. They are totally disregarded in terms of making any kind of design. Look at all the mega projects. These guys have a lot of money now and getting rich and rich every day. After 15 years, they are going to be like a Kuwait. I had 5 years of experience in Azerbaijan. That's why I am able to say something about that. With all these big projects there, they have the money they paid. And they get designs from the Zaha Hadid, like the Haydar Aliyev Cultural Center over there, or the Park Boulevard, the best and the first shopping mall there. When it comes to subconstructors, definitely Turkish companies are there. When it comes to main contracting business, in the industrial side, the Chinese, in the extravaganza side, let me say, the Koreans are there. The only Turkish company that has real presence in Azerbaijan in terms of contracting is Tekfen. This is the only one. Other than this, the subcontracting business from the Turkish side are going there. So this is the case.
Shedding light on it, but as always in a panel we're discussing what is going on and what must be going on. So, I mean, I can just relate this to a very simple joke, if you may. There's a guy, a barber in his shop, attending a customer, trimming his hair, and then he sees a boy outside and says, "Look, this boy is not bright. I'm going to prove this to you." Calls the boy, says, "Here's $1 and here are 2 quarters. Take whichever you want." The boy takes the quarters and gets out. The barber says, "You see, he's not bright." The client is not satisfied. When he gets out of the shop, he sees the boy in the corner, walks up to the boy and asks, "Why didn't you take the $1? The boy says, "The day I take the $1, the game is over." This is also what's going on.
Clarification about my recommendation, maybe it's misunderstood. I don't say that we are going to go and make cheap housing and then get oil instead. What I'm doing it was an offer between Venezuela and Turkey, which may not be considered very professionally. It's something that we can discuss later on. But what my offer is, there are many upscale contractors in terms of residential, commercial projects. And those companies may have some incentives through the government regulations and government agreements, which can also be included into PPP. And then the payments could be made to Turkish government through oil, maybe selling cheap oil cheap, and then can affect and positively the Turkish account deficit, which is, we all know that this current account deficit is caused mainly because of the energy import. So that could be a partnership in between the governments, and I'm not saying that we are going to go and make some cheap housing. I'm just thinking of providing high-scale projects, which can, and I don't agree with you about the design, because maybe Sinan is going to talk about it. Our designers, our architects, when you give them the chance, they can build up really, really good quality designs.
Any other questions? One more over there.
Hello everybody, my name is Taleh Kuliyev, I am from Azerbaijan. I am Vice President of Avesta Concern, which is the author of Khazar Islands project, the mega project. I just to make some remarks concerning questions that our brothers just told about. Just you didn't invite Azerbaijan when you compare some works, for example, execution of real estate projects in Azerbaijan and Turkey. Yeah, it would be great that one Azerbaijani expert or designer, constructor could attend this panel. As to the visa issue, this is real true that this is only political reason. There is only political reason concerning Iran. There are no other, there cannot be other reasons because we are brothers. As to the third point that our brother reminded that there are only one Turkish company, Tekfen, I can't agree with it. Because, for example, in our project now, in Khazar Islands, I can even name the names of these companies. I can just call the names of these companies. For example, Nurol, Tashyapı, they are our partners. And there are so many other companies. They are working as subcontractors. But this Tashyapı and Nurol, they are our partners there. Therefore, tomorrow we'll make with our friend, we will make a presentation and we will give broad information about our project. But I just wanted to make some remarks concerning these things about Azerbaijan. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, we're always slightly over time, so if there are no other questions, I would like to call the session off. Thanks a lot, and thanks, guys, for being here and for your valuable time. Thank you.